Welcome to the Fantasy Champions Fantasy Football Podcast. Here's your host, Morgan Colby and Rick Lemon.
What's poppin', fantasy champs? Welcome back to the pod. Welcome back to episode 2 of the week. Interesting stuff. I know the last week's episodes were out a little bit later, so you might get 4 on this current week.
Whoa.
This would be a lot of episodes thrown at you very, very expeditiously. But we are back. We are better than ever. It's getting warmer. It's 80 degrees this weekend where I'm at, so that's exciting.
Yeah.
It's like I feel
the
it.
weather's nice.
I can feel it. I can feel it. The vitamin D going right into my veins.
Yeah.
But anyway, so we are, heading into the tranches of summer, the 3 months of summertime. And, with that comes all of this redraft content that we do only this time of year. And I just can't wait for the season to start. I think he said on Sunday, 17 weeks, 17 Sundays. Lots of Sundays to go.
Yep.
But it'll fly. It'll fly.
That's a whole season.
That is a whole... Okay. Don't crush my hopes and dreams. I'm just waiting for the top 100 countdown.
Dude, did you see? I'm pretty sure it was a joke. I thought it was serious at first, but somebody posted like his voting for the top 100 players.
Yeah.
He just did the top 20. It was he had Justin Fields at like 9. Well, I love Fields, but like, dude, what? He had Matt Judon at 4.
Oh my god, dude.
Yeah.
I heard I heard Judon's gonna be high.
Yeah, I mean, I get him being high, but like number 4 is kind of insane.
No, that's crazy.
He had some crazy ones though.
Mac Jones 20.
He wasn't even a Pats fan. He just had like the craziest takes.
Matt Slater, number 70.
Yeah, Matt Slater's top 10.
Yeah, right. So today we are going to talk about our top 5 rookies for redraft. So this is the rookies, but for redraft. Rookies, redraft. Usually those two things don't go together, but I want you to know before you get in the comments and you complain about, oh, this guy's going to be good. What are you talking about? Yeah, no, we're talking about rookies for redraft. You get to use them for 1 year. And for keeper leagues, yeah, there's benefits there. But we're not talking about that. We're talking about redraft. You redraft your team every year. So we're going to do that on this show. We're going to talk about 5 rookies that we're comfortable with taking this year for fantasy football. We'll tell you why. Before we do that, check out our website, fantasychampions.com. Follow us on Twitter, Instagram, Facebook, TikTok. If you're listening on Apple Podcasts, Spotify, Stitcher, or any other podcast platforms, please leave a review. Share this podcast with your friends. If you're watching on YouTube, subscribe. Click the bell for notifications, like, and comment down below any questions you might have for us. And we will get to them expeditiously, hopefully. So yeah, I love doing this show every time of year because there is, there's usually like a lot of conversation in fantasy football, in the fantasy football space surrounding the draft, and it's mostly related to dynasty because a lot of these assets that you're picking up are good in dynasty leagues, and good value to have in dynasty leagues, but when you start talking about looking forward in redraft or year 1, they significantly drop off, and it's much harder to find successful running backs or successful wide receivers that come out in their rookie season. And I don't see a lot of people talking about rookies specifically for redraft in the fantasy space. So this is a podcast unique to us, I guess. So I think it's good to talk about because we are a redraft. We're primarily a redraft show, and as we bring you into the season, like some of these younger guys are going to make an impact. Early last season and the last couple of years, the wide receivers have shown that they can make an impact on your fantasy team at least in a flex capacity. So that almost sounded like flux capacitor in my brain. That's what I said.
Something like that.
But anyway. Yeah, and you can play them in your flex and stuff like that. But so we're going to give you 5 guys that we're okay with taking for this year and talk about why, and then if we have time, maybe an honorable mention here and there if you're interested.
Sure.
But let's start. What say you, boss?
Let's do it.
All right, number one, and this list. I think this is ranked for me personally.
It isn't or is?
It is.
It is.
So, but you can take it in any order. It's not like you have to draft these guys are probably drafted in this order anyway.
I believe that
maybe
almost.
not one of these guys, but so we have a couple of different guys. Obviously we've recapped the draft content, all that stuff. And we know where the landing spots are for these guys. Bihan ended up going to the Atlanta Falcons, which I'm not going to lie, like where his ADP is right now, who landed in a better situation? Bihan Robinson with Atlanta or Saquon Barkley with the Giants when he got drafted? Because it's an equal crap situation.
I was gonna say I think the Giants were awful when they drafted
terrible.
Barkley.
I don't think the Atlanta Falcons are good either.
I actually think it might be Bihan.
Better situation for Bihan? Okay, maybe that's why he's getting drafted higher. So Rick told me today, best ball. He was what?
He's going down a little bit, so the hype is
all right. Good,
but he's still the RB2, and he was going as the 103. Now he's at the 105, 106.
Okay. Player Profiler has his ADP currently at 12.1.
Oh, there we go.
So that is much more reasonable for me. And I think when you get...
He's flying up, though, +6.
Oh, yeah, flying. When you get to, draft month, I think that's going to be, like, he'll probably be anywhere between 8 and 12. I would take him as high as 6. And, it just depends on where the rankings are. But there are some wide receivers that I would take over him, so I don't even know if I'd take him that high. But I think for Bihan Robinson, like, the talent is there, the excitement is there, and he was drafted with a top 10 selection, which doesn't normally happen for running backs. So for him, he's got the draft capital, he's got a really good landing spot, and he's extremely talented. Like, they're going to force feed him the ball. I mean, last year, Arthur Smith loved to run the ball with the crap he had on his team, and now he's got a real running back. So they are going to feed this guy. And I think year one, he should have a heck of a lot of success. I think, at worst, he's going to push some of these dudes that at the running back position that you want in the second round back a little bit, just sheerly by the fact that he's going to be a first round pick most likely. So,
yeah.
But I really like him. Like, if you're looking at, rookies for redraft, we're not talking about must draft players like we were on the last show. You're talking about guys that are rookies that could have success year one, regardless of where he goes. Bihan's probably going to be rookie of the year and the dude who finishes the highest, of all the rookies this year.
Right.
I would imagine, unless something horrible happens.
Yeah, I mean, and there's a guy who I think maybe, if all things go well, could compete with him for the top rookie for redraft. But I think Bihan right now is the top guy. He's, like you said, he's in Atlanta there with Arthur Smith, who's kind of a clown. But there's one thing Arthur Smith loves to do is run the football. So I think he's probably going to get like 300 touches year one. So regardless how you feel about the Falcons and their quarterback situation, they were kind of in the same spot last year, but their rushing offense was still okay. Like, it was still decent. Their interior offensive line is pretty good. Their coach loves to run the ball. He's going to get a lot of carries. So, like, there's a lot of things setting up for Bihan to have a really, really good rookie year. I still don't want to draft him, like, top 5, though. I feel like that's still a little, like, late first round, I'm okay with. But anything, once you get, like, I don't know, the top 5 is like the guaranteed, like, or at least you're expecting a guaranteed RB1. I don't know if he's that, but all things point to the right direction with him. I think was Barkley the RB1 his rookie year?
I don't know if he was the RB1, but he was
either the RB1 or RB2 as a rookie, and I don't know if Bihan will do that. He has the potential to do it though. So he's clearly the number one rookie. I don't think it's really a contest of who's even number two, but I just don't know how much I'm going to have him on my team, especially if the hype continues.
Typically, if you look at the history of running backs in the running back position, if you're drafted as a first round pick, you're going to get the work. And as long as you stay healthy, and you don't get hurt, it typically running backs are kind of easy to hit on.
Yeah.
So if you're getting drafted high, there's a very high likelihood that you're not a bust. Whereas the likelihood of you being a success at the wide receiver position, regardless of where you're taken, is significantly lower at the wide receiver position than it is at the running back position. Regardless of what you think of a player. You know what I mean? You can run around Twitter and say, I saw this guy run and a 5-star recruit out of high school, and he's a good route runner. He goes real quick and gets around the guys, and he scores touchdown. He looks really good. I think he's going to be great. You can say all you want about certain players, but we'll find out until they play the NFL game.
I mean, if you go back to 2015, though, and you just look at the running backs drafted in the top 10, and I think I brought this up pre-draft with him, but Todd Gurley, 2015.
Yes, sir.
Zeke, 2016.
Yes, sir.
Leonard Fournette, who's probably the worst of the bunch, at number 4 overall.
Still had some great years.
Christian McCaffrey, 8th overall.
Yes, sir.
Saquon Barkley, 2nd overall, 2018. And that's it. That's the end of the list. So...
yeah. And now you
those are all great fantasy running backs, or were.
Yeah. But it's like, to me, obviously you're drafting a rookie. There is some positional, you're drafting a rookie. There's obviously some risk tied to that. What if Bijan comes into the NFL and he just isn't good? That would obviously be horrible for the Falcons. It'd be horrible for fantasy football. But I would say the chances of that happening are somewhere in the ballpark of 5 to 6%.
Yeah.
Very low. And so it's higher than what you would normally if you're making a choice between, let's say, I don't know, Josh Jacobs and, what's his name? Obviously the more sure thing is going to be Josh Jacobs.
Yeah.
But I think the ceiling for Bijan is what Rick was talking about with Saquon, where he could be 1, 2, or 3,
right?
This year. Not talking about next year. We're talking about this year.
Right.
So, Bijan, great player. Let's talk about the next guy. His name is Jahmyr Gibbs. Talked about him before. He goes 11. Was that right? No, 12 to the Detroit Lions.
Yep, 12th overall.
Now, we like this guy coming in. We called him the Alvin Kamara of this class. He has some traits similar to Alvin Kamara. His contact balance is great pass catcher, all that good stuff. Big thing with Jahmyr Gibbs. Thought he was going to be a second-round pick.
Yeah.
Thought he was going to be a second-round pick. I was even talking about, Patriots. They got some picks in the second round.
Even when we got close to the draft and there were some rumors about him going first round, I was expecting in the ballpark of 20 to 32, not 12th overall.
Yeah, I don't know that Detroit played the board very well, but they got their guy. The GM almost broke the table when they drafted him. So I mean, there's that. But the big thing for me is that when we talk pre-draft about these players and capital, and we obviously knew Gibbs had a chance of being drafted in the first round. Even if he was a second-round pick, then you factor in a little bit more of the landing spot. But, he was drafted with the 12th pick. He's a top 12 selection in the NFL draft. He's got to be now in the same ballpark as, he doesn't have that same ceiling, but he's going to be in that same ballpark as Bijan in terms of having success year one. Now, if we're talking about a top 12 finish, most likely, Jahmyr Gibbs will probably be 11 or 12, if I had to guess, because Detroit and their running backs are weird. But
David Montgomery.
Yeah, David Montgomery and Jahmyr Gibbs, they completely reset the running back room. A weird position to choose. But anyway, so they get rid of Swift, they trade him away, and they get Jahmyr Gibbs to replace him, basically the same thing. I think they were concerned with Swift about health, and Gibbs comes in and kind of replaces him, if he stays healthy, I think they use him in a similar way to which they used, DeAndre Swift. And if that happens, I think he is a top 12 running back in fantasy football. So to me, that's why he's second on this list, because he's a first round pick and the draft capital kind of screams like, we're going to use this guy. There's when you draft a guy that high, you're not just talking about like draft capital. You're talking about financial investment. Like they could have traded.
They had how many draft picks, and he was their first one?
I know.
They had 2 in the first, 2 in the second.
You could have traded back and saved $8 million on the kid.
Yeah, and there was also a report that if the Lions did not trade back, what did they have? Like the 8th overall pick, 6th? Yeah. No, they had 6th, right?
Yeah, something like that.
6th or 7th, whatever it was. If they didn't trade back, they were going to take him over Bijan.
Yeah. So I mean, just that would be dumb, but. Just regardless of the fact that they would do that, like, it just shows you how they feel about the kid. So, you know what I mean? Gibbs definitely going to be used.
Yeah, and the Alvin Kamara comparisons, I think, are very legit. And the good thing about it, so there's, I don't trust Dan Campbell. I don't trust the Lions. The way they use Swift does worry me. Mm-hmm. But if they use him like everyone thinks they're going to use him, and they should because of the draft capital, all those things we just talked about, you're looking at an Alvin Kamara, Mark Ingram situation with him and Montgomery. And in the Lions' offense is pretty good. Their offensive line is really good. And there's been talks about they're going to use him even as a slot receiver sometimes when Montgomery's on the field. Yep. So this is a guy who you could be looking at as like a 70, 80 catch guy year one. And in PPR leagues, if that happens and he can get,
it doesn't, it's like carries, Kamara. It's like, it doesn't even matter if he reaches 200. Kamara, I think, has only reached 200 in his career just once.
Right. And he was a top 5 running back. So I think Gibbs honestly has a super high ceiling as well. Now, I think he's got the Bijan, close to the Bijan ceiling. The problem is David Montgomery and the Lions coaching staff. I don't trust him at all.
Now, quickly with Gibbs too, his ADP is 46, so it's like way cheaper. We'll see when draft season floats around and what sleepers
he stays there. I don't think he will. As you can tell, he's flying up boards as well. He's plus 22. Yeah. But if he stays there, I think that's great value, and I would be drafting him in every single draft in like the 4th, 5th round. Once he gets higher, I think underdog, he's like 3rd round, and I think at that point, I still have drafted him in a league, but I'm not like going overboard for that.
Yeah, like third round is probably where I anticipate taking.
I think 3rd round too is probably where that feels.
I'm in that group. Like, I wouldn't mind drafting him in the 2nd round. Like, if I'm late, like if you're a high 1st round selection.
Yeah, he's at least someone to consider.
Yeah,
but in like the 5th round, 4th or 5th round.
Like if you can get him in the 5th round, it reminds me of the Jonathan Taylor season where everyone was concerned about Marlon Mack and all that crap. He was a 6th round pick. Like that is kind of the vibes that I'm going to get. But like, just based on draft capital and what they said about the kid, like he's definitely like, I would be shocked if I look back on this video and Gibbs is not the 2nd best rookie in year one. All right, let's talk about another guy, Jordan Addison. Interesting slot here. Goes to Minnesota. Wasn't my favorite wide receiver in this class. Still isn't my favorite wide receiver in this class. But the reason why I have him on this list in this spot is more specifically pertaining to the team that he went to and the lack of receivers that they have. He goes to Minnesota on a football team that just lost its longtime slot receiver to the Carolina Panthers, and they let him walk. They were like, we're done with this guy. But they like to use the slot. They like to use the middle of the field. And Jordan Addison kind of fits that role. We've talked about that before. I think this is the perfect landing spot for him in general, because there was a lot of vacated targets on this football team to begin with. Now, I think to start the season, you might have a situation where those vacated targets maybe shift to Hawk. And then as the season goes along and Jordan Addison kind of catches on, he'll start to advance a little bit more and take those targets back. But I think they brought him in essentially to replace Adam Thielen. And because of that, I think he has the best chance of having success year one because they have the vacated targets there. Like Justin Jefferson was already getting targeted a lot. They can't keep throwing him the ball that much. You know what I mean? Like if he's already getting 170 targets, like how many
184.
more? 184. Like how many more targets can you funnel to that guy? I think they want a guy, an outlet underneath, and that's why they use a first-round pick on him to distribute the target share a little bit more, so they're not just throwing it to Hawk and just throwing it to Justin Jefferson, but they're also getting other guys involved. And I think Addison in the slot really will take advantage of that. And I think he'll become at some point next season, he'll become a target machine where he'll be a dump-off guy. I mean, Kirk Cousins does not have a cannon. He plays a very similar game to that of Mac Jones or pocket passers. And, so he's not going to be a dude that's going to be looking down the field significantly. I think they do want to get it off just not that you want to take targets away from Justin Jefferson, but I think for them offensively, it's better if they have more guys that you have to think about besides just one dude, where if there's Ola BC Johnson is in the slot and Justin Jefferson's getting double teamed, like I if I was a defensive coordinator, I'd be like, okay, Ola BC, beat me down.
Right.
So Jordan Addison coming in now, defenses have to kind of think about that stuff, and I think they want to get the ball to multiple guys so that it's, similar. Like you look at the Chiefs last year where they were just throwing it to everyone. So, we'll see how it develops, but I would not be surprised if we get to the end of the season and Jordan Addison's kind of in that, upper echelon of rookie wide
I think
receiver.
of all the rookies, he's the guy I would probably bet on to get 100 targets as a rookie.
Yeah.
Where I don't know if any of the other rookie receivers will get that,
Mm-hmm.
or if they might, but Addison at least has the best odds to do so.
Right.
And yeah, even if that were to happen, Jefferson would still, even if he took 15 targets away, he's still at 160. So, and I think that's reasonable to assume. But Thielen, with him out, that's 107 vacated targets. And, they could go to Hawkinson, but Hawkinson had a lot of targets anyway when he was in the lineup last year.
Mm-hmm.
KJ Osborne had 90 targets. This isn't the Minnesota Vikings from 4 or 5 years ago that would run the ball a lot. This is a pass-heavy team now.
Yeah.
And there's a lot of rumors. I think even Schefter said that there's a really good chance Dalvin Cook is not on this team this year.
Mm-hmm.
And they're going to just be a full-on passing offense. And they were anyway last year, 672 pass attempts for the team. That's up there for the most in the league. And you're looking at a rookie who has a chance to slot right in as the wide receiver too.
Mm-hmm.
I agree, it might not be week one. I think Justin Jefferson, if you remember correctly, wasn't the wide receiver two to Thielen and by week one. I think it took him the first 2 or 3 weeks, and then he exploded in week 3 and 4, and then so on. The rest was history. I could see that with Addison. I think they might start with KJ Osborne, and then Addison works his way as the season progresses. But yeah, he's someone, and his ADP right now is 100. So I think that's a decent value. If I'm going to draft a rookie receiver, it's 9th round, so I'll take a flyer there.
Yeah. I mean, I'm not one to draft rookie wide receivers, but this one is a guy that, if they get involved at some point in the season, he could be really good. There's also a game that I like to play with rookie wide receivers where some people are they'll hold. So maybe I don't need to take this risk in the home league because there's 3 guys that'll do that. But I typically with rookie wide receivers, if I like them, I'll let somebody else draft them, watch the first 3 weeks of the season, go, this is crap, and then pick them up.
And then make an offer.
Yeah, and then make an offer or pick them up when they drop them off their team. So, but I think I definitely could see Jordan Addison making an immediate impact in the slot for them. So we'll definitely see what happens. Number 4, is this 3 or 4? I think we're 4. Devin Achane. Of the Miami Dolphins. So he gets drafted. His ADP is worse. It's 117. So he's we're talking 10th round or beyond for this guy. But Miami drafted him with a 3rd round pick.
Yes, sir.
And isn't that the capital that they gave to the Texans gave to Dameon Pierce?
I think Dameon Pierce was a 4th rounder.
So last year we saw 4th round pick running backs succeed. I think Ramondre.
Yeah, I think he was a 4th rounder as well.
So when I look at Devin Achane, pick 321 here, they have a need at running back. They were talking about going and getting a guy like Dalvin Cook or somebody else, and they choose not to go in either of those directions. Especially with Mixon and Dalvin Cook available, you would think that they would, and I think they probably looked into it, but Devin Achane was probably the cheaper option, and I think that based on his workout numbers, he's extra. This is going to be one of the fastest offenses in the NFL. I'm not even going to front. It's ridiculous.
Oh yeah, it is. It's all speed.
He's a fastest running back. 4.32, 99th percentile for a running back. So he's just going to be lightning. But his college target share 14.7%, 93rd percentile. So he's a guy that likes to catch the ball. They're going to get the ball to him through the air. I think they're going to try to get it to him on the ground. And with that running scheme and all of that stuff, I think that makes Devin Achane a really good option. He could even finish higher in terms of fantasy points than Jordan Addison this year. And I think it either starts week 1 or he has to ease into it and take the veterans job. But I think at some point this year, you're going to see Devin Achane having RB1 weeks. I don't think he's going to be an RB1, but he'll have weeks where he produces as an RB1 in the top 12. So, and I think there's a good chance that he could finish in the top 24 at the running back position, which could be a decent flex for you. And he's cheap. So I would take the flyer on Devin Achane late.
Absolutely. There's a lot of people he's probably the most polarizing player for rookies. Like there's a lot of people that are either really high on him or really low on him. And the way I view it is like, especially for redraft, the price isn't bad. Like you just, even if he blows, you can take that flyer on him. What at 117 ADP is nothing. It is kind of like Dameon Pierce last year.
Yeah.
And Pierce worked out. I don't know if he's the same level as talent. Like you saw Pierce in the preseason, you were like, holy cow, this guy is like an NFL running back and a really good one. We'll see it with Achane, but he's a player that I think could easily just fade out. And you're like, why did I waste a 2nd round pick in dynasty drafts on him? But he's also a guy who you could look back and say, man, was he a steal? He has the opportunity there with Miami. Mostert and Jeff Wilson are both really old guys who I know Mike McDaniel likes them, but they could easily be taking over that position. And he's the younger, at this point in his career, more talented player. So he's going to have opportunity to really take over that role. He's someone who could be 3rd on the depth chart or 1st on the depth chart. So he's kind of a wild card in how they're going to use him. And I think even if he does become the top running back with Mike McDaniel's system, they're probably going to use multiple guys. But if he's able to be the top guy, he's going to be a home run pick, top 24 running back, like you said, and really good value.
Yeah, I think too. With Achane, it's you look at football teams. I remember seeing this with the Chicago Bears. They spent a 3rd round pick on a running back named David Montgomery, and obviously it might have been a 2nd round pick. I can't remember, but I remember the first 2 or 3 games they were getting I think it was Damian Williams at the time involved more, and typically you'll see that the vets are going to start off for Miami, but I think Achane's speed and ability to catch the ball is going to kind of take over at some point. So, and they drafted him to be that. So, but Rick's right, he could either bust and suck or be really good. Could go either way. But at pick 117.
Yeah.
What are we doing?
The value's there.
All right. Last guy, Jackson Smith-Njigba. We talked about him before. Out of the top receivers that we really liked, like Quentin Johnston, Jackson Smith-Njigba, and Zay Flowers. Flowers goes to a team that, I heard a stat the other day that, in his MVP season, Lamar Jackson threw 3,100 passing yards, which is just not great in terms of passing. So he threw a lot of touchdowns that season, but Zay's obviously going to have some trouble putting up big fantasy numbers unless there's like touchdowns involved or something like that.
Did you hear what Lamar said?
That they were going to force feed him the ball.
No, they said Lamar said he's going to try to throw for 6,000 yards this year.
Yeah, get over it. That's not happening. He got a couple receivers and now he's getting hot-headed.
Yeah, he said that they're going to be a pass-first team, so we'll see.
But and then you have a team like the Chargers who just draft a guy that's similar to Mike Williams but plays Keenan Allen's play style. Like he'll start the season as like the number 3 receiver.
The 3, I think.
And then you have Jackson Smith-Njigba, and like I don't see another running back that I really really like. Besides Kendre Miller, and I don't know if that's even going to be a great spot. But Smith-Njigba gives you really interesting upside. With Seattle, and he's kind of in the same slot where it's like you have Lockett, you have Metcalf, like he's going to start as the 3rd guy, and you just don't know what's going to happen. So really at this point you could slot any of the guys that I just mentioned as the 5th guy, but I think he's the most talented of the group, so it could be a similar situation to where we saw guys that we didn't think would have success in year one last year could do it. He's picked 62 right now. I'm not.
That's too high.
I'm probably not drafting him at that. But I'm interested to see how they use him. Obviously, first round pick. We'll see. It's so funny. His best comparable on Player Profiler, Doug Baldwin, who played with Seattle.
Great Seahawks player.
So like, we'll see what happens. We'll see how they utilize him. I just don't know. I don't know what's going to look like, and he's definitely one of those receivers that could ease his way into it and be like an Amon-Ra almost, where it took until like week 8 really for that person to catch fire, and then once it happened, it was like, okay, we're gonna get this guy the ball. So like that could be Jackson Smith-Njigba. It wouldn't surprise me. He has the talent to do it. But I'm not drafting him. I'll say that much. I think he's the 5th best rookie at the end of the year in redraft, but I'm not drafting him at 62.
Yeah, the ADP is way too high for me, and it stinks because I like the player a lot. He was my clear wide receiver 1 going into the draft, and then I just don't like this landing spot. He's still my wide receiver 1 in Dynasty, but it's like he's in the same tier with the rest of the guys now. Like, I don't think there's a huge gap between him and any one of those other rookie wide receivers. And year 1 too, like I think Tyler Lockett and Metcalf are still the 1 and 2, and I don't think that's going to change this year. I think for the whole year, he's going to be the wide receiver 3 on a team that doesn't throw the ball a lot. The Seahawks only had 570 pass attempts last year.
I mean, that's
100 less than the Vikings did.
Yeah, that's crazy.
And Geno had a really great year, and I don't know if he can even replicate the year that he had.
Yeah.
4,200 yards, 30 touchdowns, 11 interceptions. Like, it's going to take a lot for him to be able to do that again. And this is a team that, as I said, like, they like to run the ball. Kenneth Walker, they drafted Charbonnet as well in the 2nd round. Like, they're going to be a run-first team. And when they do throw it, it's going to Metcalf, it's going to Lockett. I think JSN is going to have moments. He's going to have flashes. And I think you're right. We could see a good second half of the season maybe where he starts to really go on a run later in the year, has some big games. But to me, he's just not going to be worth that price at all as a wide receiver 3 on a team that doesn't throw the ball that much.
Agreed. Any more thoughts on JSN?
No, I will say the reason we do have him at 5 is because he still is probably, I think we both agree, the best receiver talent.
Yeah, the best receiver
talent. So you still got to put him at 5, but it's close. Like, I would consider drafting Zay Flowers ahead of him. Maybe Quentin Johnston, but he's kind of in the similar boat as he's the wide receiver 3 on that team. But the Chargers throw the ball more. So it's like, right. Yeah. I think JSN, Quentin Johnston, and Zay Flowers are all very similar for redraft, but Jason's just going way higher.
Yeah. Well, there you have it. Jackson Smith-Njigba, all these other guys. I'm not going to say draft JSN, but draft the other guys. I like the other guys.
Yeah.
Hopefully you enjoyed this piece of content. We got some good stuff coming next week. I think maybe a mock draft. Not sure. I'll have to check. We'll see you later, guys.
See ya.
Thank you for listening to the Fantasy Champions Podcast. Make sure you subscribe on iTunes and YouTube and follow us on Twitter @TheFFChamps.